So here's my crankcase and my crankshaft that I've got all cleaned up. This thing was pretty gross. It looks pretty damn good now. Now I believe that this gear here, this pinion gear, should come off. I didn't attempt to continue to work it and try and get it off. I cleaned up all the gunk in between the teeth, and I cleaned this thing up. I don't care if that comes off, it doesn't matter. The bearing slides right over the top of that, so in this instance it's not necessary to remove that. Now I did have this little collar on here, spacer for the front bearing. Take a look at these bearings though. Boy, these are bad. I think I showed you this on one of the videos already, but man, these were nasty, so I don't even want to touch those things. Got the piston all cleaned up. I'm not too worried about getting all that other stuff. I let it soak in totally awesome cleaner, and then I wiped it down real good, and what came off, what didn't, I don't care. I did have this all apart, made sure that my ring is free and moves. I did not take it off the piston, so that should be all fine and dandy there. So I've got bearings on order, and there's, won't be here till probably the middle of next week. I want to show you something that I found with this timing gear case. Man, was this thing a mess. This thing was a complete mess. It wouldn't even hardly turn. I think that was one of the reasons the crankshaft wasn't turning, because this thing was, I didn't think this engine looked like it had that much runtime, but man, by the amount of crap, and I've already cleaned this thing up and oiled it and everything, I just put it back together. I'm going to take it apart real good to show, or again to show you the things I found that were somewhat interesting about this. But anyway, this thing was so nasty that it wouldn't even hardly turn. You can see now I've got it turning very freely. Now this, a lot of the older Saitos would have these Teflon bearing washers in there, but this one has the steel ones. Or maybe they're steel because they attach to the magnet, but this thing was just caked. It was horrible in there. So obviously I took the cam followers out, and this is really why I wanted to show you this. This is unlike any cam follower I've seen on a Saito engine before, in that it's got this head on it, and that head actually goes inside because there's that cupped end that the pushrod engages in. And this is unfortunate for one main reason. Every Saito timing gear has this hole in it, and this hole is so that you can insert a tool down in here to set the timing of this engine, so that when you can set that tool, hold it in place, and drop it onto your crankcase, and then your engine's timed. Well, unfortunately, the way this thing is designed with these type of cam followers and this nub, they don't go in like this, so you can't just put them in the top. They go in from the bottom, which means that unfortunately I'm not going to be able to employ that method of setting the timing using my timing tool or my screwdriver that I normally use to drop down there and engage it, because I got to have that cam follower in place because of the way that they're designed. So that's going to suck, in that that's going to lead me to time this engine the way I don't like to do it, which is I got to have the crankshaft, bearings, everything all in place, hold the crank pin, hold this connecting rod pin at top dead center, and then rotate this thing around. I'm not going to have any way to hold that gear. I'm just going to have to put that timing dot down at the bottom and hope to hell that it doesn't move when I go to do this. Because if it moves off one tooth, well, your timing's not good. So I mean, unfortunately, because of the way this thing is designed, these cam followers are designed, that's the only way I'm going to be able to time this, is put this all back together, and the last thing will be to do it is hold this thing at top dead center, and then just point that dot down and just hope for the best when you go and drop it in place. And there's no way you'll be able to verify it, I mean, because the bearings have got to be in place. Otherwise you'd be able to say, oh, I can look in there and I can kind of see maybe, but you can't. So that part kind of sucks. So timing of this engine is going to be kind of hit or miss. So that's one of the things I wanted to show about this. But man, this thing was just so horrible. It was so bad I had to really clean this up just so I could find that timing dot. As you can see, there's still some staining on here that if I really wanted to get off I could, but I'm not going to bother with it. I can see the timing dot and that's about the best it's going to be. But man, this thing was super, super bad. I don't know how much runtime this engine had, but it definitely had what to me like at least a half a gallon, if not a gallon, through this engine. So it was nowhere near new, but hopefully it's going to be in excellent condition again here when I'm done and when I get my bearings. Alright, so I've got all the pieces here to put my valves back in my head, which is nice and cleaned up now. So I've got the 2 springs, valve springs, 2 pieces that go on top, and these 4 microscopic freaking collets that hold things in place, which is always going to be fun. So I've cleaned the inside of my head up a little bit. It looks pretty nice. I've got my exhaust valve here. I'm just going to stick it on the end of this magnet and use that to help guide me into the hole here, hopefully. We could use another little flashlight or something to shine down in there, but I don't see one. Here we go. Okay, I think I've got it started in the hole. So there's the exhaust valve. Let me do the same thing with this intake valve. Okay, exhaust and intake valve installed now. This time I am probably going to have to wad up a pretty sizable piece of paper towel to try and keep those things from compressing. Hopefully I can just compress it up there enough with my finger to do this, otherwise I'll have to jam some more stuff in there. Yeah, this should be good. Lower my visor and see how easy this is going to be now. Okay, one side's in. And amazingly enough, that wasn't too tough. Yeah, I don't want to push down on that. So, being that this is a 120, sure makes life a lot easier. These parts are substantially larger, but still, it's really not that easy to do this. And it's a piece of cake to get one side in, but trying to get that other one in. I'll try and line it up there and then just push the spring down and hope I can push it all down at the same time. This valve is wanting to be a little bit stubborn here. Okay, whew, thankfully that's done. Now there's some strong springs. And there you have it. You can see the 2 holes for the both glow plugs. You can see my nice exhaust intake valve in there. That part is done. So here, another nice use of these Carnegie screwdrivers is that one of them is really small and I can really kind of get in there and pop these shields out rather easily and watch as I slide it across the table there. Alright, so that shield's out. So this front bearing is ready to install. So now we've got our crankcase here, camshaft, or the crankshaft. The only thing I have to remember to do is I have to make sure I put this collar on here, but that feels kind of dry, so let me grab my oil. I'll lube this thing up again real good. So I just got to make sure I keep that collar on there. Now I could slide this bearing on here, just like that, but I'm probably going to press it in the case first. But seeing as I've got this collar on here now, I can go ahead and focus on installing this bearing in here. So as usual, let me move my press in here and let me see if I can actually get it framed up better so you can actually see the operation. And I'm going to heat this up just a hair. I don't heat it up a ton. Probably heat it up a lot more, but I haven't really found it to be necessary. Let me look in my camera here, and it does look like it's framed up somewhat. Maybe I could slide it a little bit more here so it's in frame a little bit better. And this is simply just a matter of that. See how all that work for something that really isn't that exciting at all? Now what is going to be more exciting is the fact that I didn't come prepared with a socket, so I need to go find a socket. Actually, this press will go right down into that crankshaft or crankcase, so I don't need a socket there. Let me just make sure I got some lubrication in here. I'll go ahead and heat this bad boy up a little bit. That bearing in place. Now I'm watching from the open side of the crankcase here. And that bearing would appear to be pressed in place. Next, the all-important crankshaft. Which I am probably going to have to go get a socket for. So I've got my socket in place. I just heated this thing up. And we are pressed in place. There you have it. Wow, that case is pretty warm. I used a little bit higher heat that time because I really didn't think that rear bearing was fully seated, and it wasn't. So I applied a little bit more heat, and now she's seated. Now we can move on to setting the timing of this engine.